All right, cool, dude. I think we're looking good.
All right, ready to talk about erosions. Is it erosion mixes or what's the
It's just called Erosion. So,
erosion?
yeah, those were just the mixes I got back from the engineer.
Yeah. Well, I listened to it like 4 times. Curious to learn like about some of the themes, especially like it starts off on a very positive, grateful note, and then there's some turns. So it'll be interesting to go into that. Let's just start off with like what was the initial spark or moment that led of the creation of this album? Like,
Yeah, when I first started it, it didn't really have any themes or anything to really tie it together. But what happened was I went to a concert. I went to Pretty Lights, this artist who tours with a live band, and I went with some of my close friends, some of my bandmates. It was a very fun weekend, but it was also very inspiring kind of to just see what kind of level some of these people can hit as far as music performance and stuff. And in particular, during the Pretty Lights set, he had a part where he was using a vocoder, which is basically just a vocal effect that you could sing through that kind of like turns your voice into like synth chords also. So I had this amazing weekend with my friends, and I came back home to the studio, and like the day after I got home, I wrote the first and second song in one day, like to completion. Like both of those songs were written, An Offering and Ancestral Plane. Both of those tracks were written, within a 6-hour session. And the first song, An Offering, was my experimental attempt to do a vocoder for myself. So I was inspired, brought some of that home, being like, I want to have that sound what he did with his vocals. Let me play around with it. And then by the end of the night, I suddenly had 2 songs that I was very very proud of and very excited about. And by the end of that session, I was like, okay, like this is the spark for an album. Creativity and inspiration definitely comes in waves for me. So the second I heard those 2 songs and how good they were, it was like a moment when I was like, okay, I know that I have like an album inside of me. Like I know over the next X amount of months, something is ready to come out of me. And that's kind of what happened. The entire album was written in about 2.5 months, which is very fast for a 10-song project. It just kind of dumped out of me. And yeah, to your point earlier, the first 2 songs kind of have this light or positive vibe. And then deeper into the album, it definitely turns into depressive or sad topics. But it kind of made me think of the album as a circle. I wanted to keep those songs up front for a couple reasons. They came first, but they are also kind of catchy and positive. So it was kind of like an attempt to reel people in. And then, through the writing process, I kind of tapped into and cracked open some emotions that were inside of me that I might have been pushing down for a while, and they were ready to come up. And I think it works, how some of the later songs kind of have these going through rough patches sort of feeling, but I try to make it feel like you come out of that at the end. This is the roller coaster we're going to go on, not wanting to come out of the gate with like a super sad song, and to try to get people a little hooked to listen to the full album, because you can only listen to so many sad songs. So it's like try to keep that balance a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about like your songwriting process? You mentioned uh, you wrote the songs in 2 months, or you produced and wrote the songs?
Produced and wrote. So it's all in one for me. There's no set starting point. Anything can inspire a song. When I'm first sitting down to write a song, I generally start with more like synths or pianos and then come to drums, which I think is the opposite of a lot of producers. But that's not guaranteed. And then also through the writing process, I started finding certain production tricks or styles that I learned in the process that then started revealing themselves in each song. I was like, oh, like it became a formula for the album. Of by song 4, I was like, oh, I'm going to take this chord progression. I was doing this thing where I was running chords through a vocoder, that same thing that I said that I was inspired by in the first song. And I was using drums to trigger the vocoder. So kind of using it in an unorthodox way where the synth chords, I know this is a little techie and nerdy, but the synth chords would start to pulse to whatever drum pattern I fed into it. So that was like this thing that I learned, and a very powerful tool. I started using it almost on all of the songs. I was digging into the same drum folder for all of the songs, the same kind of vibes, because I knew that it was going to be an album, and I knew I wanted it to be cohesive. So I kind of reached for the same tools. But otherwise, other than that, a lot of my production and writing is just kind of thriving in chaos and just kind of throwing things around, the classic, throw it out the wall and see what sticks. And then for lyrics specifically, I think I'm finding myself, after rapping for 10 years and singing and whatnot, I'm like reaching a point with this skill set where I can totally like get out of my own way and kind of just let things flow into me. And obviously there's usually a theme to start it. But a lot of times I'm like freestyling and kind of just following my gut reaction. And it took, it took 10 years of rapping to kind of get to this point where I could remove myself from the equation and just kind of let these thoughts flow out, and finally having the rhyme vocabulary to just let those things come out without really thinking about it, or without trying to Google, oh, what rhymes with this, which is like, what I used to do. And it's like, now it's a point where, I kind of, it's me, it's my story, it's my perspective. But I also try to just open up and speak things that I think other people would relate to as well. And I'm really just, when things flow, I let them come, instead of, oh, I don't know about that one line. Like, what if so-and-so thinks about that too much? Like, I'm kind of just over that point, and I'm just saying what needs to be said. And yeah, I think that partly was why the whole thing was produced and written so quickly.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned a good point of like getting out of your way, because sometimes you're so stuck as an artist, stuck in your own thoughts, insecurities, and how people will perceive it. And it really gets in the way of just flowing and being able to just express yourself the way you want to be. So let's start with like a track by track breakdown, starting with like An Offering. So tell me a little bit about like how that songwriting process was for this, and the instruments. Also, was this about a specific person, or like what inspired the song?
Yeah, totally. So it's not about a specific person. I think I played it to someone at some point, and I think they thought it was about them, but it never was. So the song started, and this is kind of the, don't push back sort of approach. The song started with the chorus, which I was writing as an offering to the universe. When I was younger, I would actively, tell the universe, like, speak through me. Like, I will, I could be a voice or whatever. So it started as an offering of like, I was at a very happy point in my life. So it was like, how are you so good to me? Like, how are you giving me all of these things? Like, how is life so beautiful? Like, what can I do back for you, universe? Like, what can I give? So that's kind of what the chorus started as. I'll burn my light for you, kind of being like, I will sacrifice, I will give my energy. I'll burn my light for you so you can feel the warmth, so you can see it all. So it's like, I will try my best to do what I do, to try to comfort, to try to illuminate, what needs to be illuminated. And at first it started as like kind of a me and the universe thing. But the thing with songwriting for me is, I'm just along for the ride. I don't really know where it's going. So now when I look at the song, it feels like an offering to, the people who support me, and just kind of there's a line that goes, those problems that you're dealing with, you're not alone. So it's like just kind of a reminder, to anyone listening, just trying to make people feel seen and connected, and doing whatever I can to try to make people feel better about this, this tough life that we live.
And can you break down the layers of production on this?
Yeah. So the big, were you finished?
I was going to ask earlier, but I forgot whether you start the songwriting first and then the production, or vice versa. How is that?
So for that, it's always production first, lyrics next. But that doesn't mean all of the production has to be done. Usually I'll kind of get a shell of the song, and then maybe I'll feel inspired to put lyrics on that. And then when it's time to kind of polish the song off, additional production might come in. Usually I'm super inspired while I'm writing a song very quickly. If not, you know, I'm usually jumping to the next one. But like for this song, it probably got to a point with just like the chords and the vocoder that I was using. Like I said, it was my first time trying to explore that. I probably like sang the chorus pretty soon. You know, it might have just been chords, and then I might have sung the chorus and then gone back, added the drums, and then kind of was inspired by the drum patterns, like, oh, let me write a verse. So kind of back and forth, but generally speaking, production first, lyrics second. I'm really writing specific lyrics to each song. The production on this and the production on a lot of the songs, I'm using very basic sound design pads, just kind of these light, airy synths. I'm using this tool called Cthulhu to kind of write chord progressions for me. And then I'm kind of doing that vocoder trick where I'm feeding drums into a synth and I'm making the synth kind of talk and move to like a rhythm.
Yep. Now, moving over to Ancestral Plane, I love this one. I love the like it's the feel of like the indigenous
Yeah,
cultural vocals.
totally.
Talk to us about this track.
Yeah. So that's the only song on the project that has a sample. So it'll be interesting when I upload it to see. You know, I've never like cleared a sample like that and uploaded to Spotify. I'm basically gonna upload it with the intention of I am willing to give 100% of the rights of this song to that original artist. So I'm kind of being like, if you copyright me for that song, like I am ready for you to own 100% of that song, just because I want to get it out there. But yeah, so I heard that original song, I don't know, just on shuffle on Spotify. And the second I heard it, I was like, oh my God, I have to sample this. And I haven't really sampled a song like that in quite some time. It's kind of how I first started making music before I knew how to use synths and stuff like that. But yeah, if I heard the original song, it just grabbed my soul kind of like at the roots. And I sped it up, I pitch shifted it, transposed it a couple semitones, and yeah, that guitar part and that vocal, they just, especially when I sped them up, they just sounded absolutely magical. And that's kind of where the name of the song came from, just that ancestral, you know, that ancestral feeling.
Yep. Let's talk about the face of God.
Yeah, this will be a fun one to talk about.
Where do you want to start?
Yeah. I think the cool thing to talk about on this song, and I think the second I say it, it might just all kind of fall into place for you a little bit more. But that song is about highlining. So that particular song was written about an experience where I was 400 feet above the ground on a 200-meter highline out in Moab, Utah, highlining. And I kind of had an experience, man. You know, I was out there pushing myself, testing myself, and becoming proud of myself, which is a feeling that I didn't know until this happened, but a feeling that I haven't felt in so long. You know, I wouldn't allow myself to feel proud, and I, you know, ended up just breaking down and crying and just kind of in awe of the experience. Where I was just so beautiful. The people I was around were so beautiful. So yeah, that's what that song is about.
The start of the song, I feel like if I close my eyes, now that I have reference of about skylining, like it does kind of take me into a moment where you're about to start and you're just really trying to capture your breath, be present, feel the wind to try to move through.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. The intro specifically, I did a lot of sound design, which I've always wanted to have more of in my music. But I remember being so steered away from it because I always thought it was so hard and had to be so involved. But I tried it anyway, and I just did it really simply. And I realized with sound design, like you can do really cool stuff with really basic approaches, if you will. So yeah, that whole intro is very much some of the best sound design that I've done. The Face of God song too, it's some of the lyrics were inspired by a moment I had on top of the canyon. Basically, I saw this massive canyon. Think of like the Grand Canyon's massive canyonway, and there was this little path going through the canyon. And this is what I'm kind of highlining over. And at the very end of the canyon is another cliff. And like I saw a face in it. I saw like two eyes in the rocks and a nose and a face. And that's kind of like where the theme of the song came from, like the face of God. So I'm talking about that path on the lyrics, kind of envisioning it as like, that's my path, right? That's the path that's been laid out for me on my way to the face of God, whatever that may be. But kind of having this realization that there's two canyons and a path going through. And it's like, sure, we all have a path, but like I could venture off that path, take a detour. But my overall projection is between those two cliff sides, right? As far off of my path that I get, eventually I can only go so far. And that path is always there waiting for me when I'm ready to kind of get back on and continue moving. There's always that path for me, even if sometimes I feel like, oh, I took a misstep and I'm over here now, but it's like that path still exists and the trajectory is always forward. So that's kind of the essence of that track.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And when you look at the rock formations, you can see so many different types of visualizations, whatever you're kind of going through, good and bad.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful presence, and it's I think that it's really beautifully said in that moment, because I can visualize it really well for that. And I hope there like you can do some like I think out of all the songs, this one has like the strongest visuals, at least in my mind, as far as like what you can do with that.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm happy to hear that. That one probably out of the whole album was the most literal song. Like this is a literal experience that I had, and yeah, that's cool to hear.
Now let's talk Let It Be Easy.
You got any questions on it?
This one's a bit like the theme is it seems about simplicity. Was this from a personal experience, or what was the experience from this one?
Yeah, I think around the time I was writing this album, I was just experiencing a lot of personal growth. Right around that period, I lost stability kind of for the first time in my life. I grew up with a great family and a great support system, good friends, and then I went to college and, you know, just did the traditional thing, and, you know, everything was all good, you know, and then around the time I was writing this album was probably my first experience like dealing with true depression. And it was interesting because I had such a happy upbringing. You know, I always heard depression and I always was like, oh, that could never happen to me, or like, oh, like those poor people, like that stinks. But yeah, like experiencing it firsthand kind of at that time really put me into some places that kind of forced me to do certain things. And one of those things was kind of like acceptance. And I think this song is about acceptance and just realizing the bad is going to come with the good and accepting how things are. And that song's kind of like, you know, let it be easy, let it be, you know, it's so cliche, but kind of accept things as they are and find peace within them, because it's kind of like all you can really do. Yeah. And eventually around the time of this album, kind of went through a period of, you know, feeling those feelings, and I was ready and I was accepting them and I was letting them come up and feeling them and crying and releasing them for the first time in my life. So that's kind of part of the theme. I've been living my whole life in my mind, just kind of reflects the power that I was giving my mind at the time of just constant thought and constant chatter and living there, instead of taking, you know, like deeper breaths and getting more into my body and kind of being in the environment. Like literally I had a moment where I was doing breath work and I was taking literal deeper breaths, and I felt like my consciousness was like starting to like be in my body more. And like before that I was just taking these like short little breaths, like breathing into my head and like living in my head and like constant thoughts and this and that. And you know, it still fluctuates. I'm not perfect. It was just something that I started to work on. But yeah, trying to just, you know, live in the world, you know, not live in my head, you know, use my head as a tool and my thoughts as, you know, insights, or maybe nothing, maybe things to just hear and then let pass by. But yeah, that is about the time when I started kind of, you know, doing some stuff like that, just kind of breezing over some other lyrics.
Before you go over to some of the other lyrics, the memories, like the traumas that you went through, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll share a little bit. I mean, some of it goes back to the first girl I ever loved. Kind of, you know, at the time, you don't know what you got till it's gone, sort of thing. And I, you know, I actively gave up on a person when I was younger who I really cared about and loved, like simply because I didn't realize what I had and kind of was like, oh, maybe I kind of want to see what else is out there. And I kind of, lost someone very important to me on my own regard. You know what I mean? I did it. She wanted to work, she wanted to stay. And then eventually I pushed her too far away. And when I was realizing, oh, wait, no, actually I made a mistake, it's like she was too far gone. So that kind of sadness of that first heartbreak, I never really dealt with it. I have a tendency to just kind of jump. So I kind of just jumped to a new woman and used it as a distraction, to be honest with you. And everything's great. Yeah, I got this new beautiful girl on my side, and all that was just covering up, the sadness that I felt and not really allowing myself to feel that. I think that was probably one of the biggest ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Are there any other lyrics you want to go over on this song?
Yeah. This kind of goes back to the acceptance where it's like, because I get so high and I get so low. The one thing I know is I won't control what's out my window. It comes like wind blows. Sometimes it brings cold, sometimes it brings growth. So that's kind of being like, I can't control what's out my window, right? My window being, if I'm inside my body, my window being like my eyes, my outlook on the world. And it's like that acceptance of like, oh, I can control what happens in here. If something happens outside, I can react to it or I could respond to it. I get to make that decision, but I don't control what's outside my window. And for the longest time, I would always try to do the best that I could to manipulate my environment to give me what I wanted. And it's kind of a realization, like if you think you can control what's going on outside, you're just gonna lose it because it's just too big, it's too much. So that kind of shift of let it be easy, let it happen as it happens and deal with the internal feelings as they come and feel them and let them go. But don't reach out and don't push back and don't try to change things that, you have no business kind of trying to change. So yeah, that's kind of lyrics on that.
Right. And this song is a nice transition of where it's at, because it goes from like a very light, positive to a neutral, talking about the highs and lows, and then going into the next song, Feeling Blue.
Yeah. Real quick shout out on the last song. I have the first feature of the album from my buddy Archie the Baker, a really dear friend of mine from college who I used to freestyle and rap with. And he lives out in LA now. But he's just somebody I can always count on. I'll hit up a handful of artists and be like, yo, you want to rap on this? And at this point, man, he's the only one who always comes back with something. So at this point, he's almost one of the few people I continue to hit up. And yeah, I love to give him free beats. And like, he's just somebody who works for me, so I work for him, sort of friendship. And I think he did a really, really good job of understanding the mission, if you will. And he really heard my lyrics and responded. Even the line, like, let's see, I got it written down here. And I still got desire to freeze my wrist. Like talking about, like, I still have the desire to get a watch, goes back to my lines of like, I don't have a Patek on my wrist, like saying I don't have a watch. Like I'm not like this, some fancy rapper. So this is an example of him like doing what he does and truly listening to what my lyrics were and the story and the message. And I just think he did such an amazing job of answering what I put down. So shout out to Archie.
Shout out to Archie. Great. Anything else on the Let It Be Easy?
Nah, we can move.
Great. So I was mentioning before, Let It Be Easy is a good transition, sort of the next phase of the album about Feeling Blue. It obviously starts with a very deep start as far as like, how are you supposed to feel? And then who is supposed to help you when you can't help yourself? So talk a little bit about this song.
Yeah. The intro lyric is, how am I supposed to help my peers if I can't even help myself? So I feel like through my music journey over these years, I've always had this burning desire to like touch millions of people, right? And I've always had this just over the top goal of like, I want music that comes from me that's going to touch millions of people and help them and change their lives, moment of peace, understanding, insights. So it ended up driving me crazy, right? Because I had such a big goal, you know, and I always felt like a failure because my goal was so big, right? And, you know, I was writing music and, you know, maybe it was touching 3 people, like literally 3 people hitting me up and being like, wow, that song, like those lyrics really made an impression on me. And it kind of, it's like me, instead of me feeling like, wow, I'm so happy I helped those 3 people. Like my old mindset was like, whatever, like that's not the million people I was trying to touch, you know? And I've kind of reeled that in a bit, you know, being appreciative of helping one person or having one person hear a song and have a moment of relief. And that's kind of, I don't know, more of a personal thing. But even taking a step back, you know, and being like, oh, like I want to do all this for other people, but it's all kind of distractions from like, oh, I need to help myself, you know, and how am I supposed to help all of these people if I can't even take care of myself and my own mental being and my own spiritual shield from this world that we live in. So it's kind of like, you know, just such a step back, being like, I need inward, you know, I no longer for years just reaching. Now it's time to prove like, oh, you got to practice what you preach, you know, you got to put in the work on yourself before you can help somebody else. The whole, you know, airplane's going down, put on the oxygen mask for yourself before you try to put it on somebody else. So that's what that line kind of connected to. And then, yeah, it proceeds to go into debatably one of the saddest songs I've ever written. And it just really was a reflection of where I was at that point. And it's hard to be vulnerable sometimes. But I made a decision to speak my truth and to put it out there. And that was the result, you know, and really just, you know, I have a line in there, every day can't be bright yellow, shit, I'm feeling blue. Like, you know, every day can't be great. You know, sometimes we all go through some hard stuff, and just embracing that and saying, hey, this is how I feel. Maybe other people can connect. But even above that, it's like, it's not even for other people. That song was for me, you know?
You know, did you, from the original draft when you wrote this song, the lyrics, did it change a lot over time? And how much time did you sit on this track?
I write my lyrics all in one go. I can't stop and restart. It's just how my creative process works. So I can't tell you for sure. I read a lot of music, but my assumption is the beat and the lyrics were all put down in one night is usually how I do it. If not, then the beat was made one night and the lyrics were put down another night. Yeah, usually when it's down, it's down. I might go in and re-record like a line or two if I feel like it needs adjusting the following day. If I wake up the next day and I'm like, that line could be slightly better, you know, I'll dub in and I'll tweak it, which might have happened. But I would say for the most part, I assume, yeah, when it was down on that one.
And the ending, there's like a flute or
It's a harmonica.
a harmonica. Yeah. Why did you add the harmonica at then?
I'm really happy you caught that. I'm really happy you asked that. That is a dear friend of mine, Eric Hallberg. He's the lead singer of a band out here in Colorado, and we've become friends. And we have a side project now called Wabi that we work on. Eric specifically has done so much for me. He's been a mentor, especially on the Colorado scene. He's older than me, and he's been doing music in Denver for 20 years. So connecting with him has been a blessing. He's well connected in town, and he's kind of helped propel me to playing these venues in Denver quickly, you know, that would take other people maybe 3 years to get to. Like, he just knows everyone. So all of a sudden we're playing these cool venues in 2 weeks, and it's like an absolute blessing. So yeah, I think out of respect and out of the magic of music, I just wanted to capture him on my album and solidify it and make it this you know, there's this thing with music where you release it and it's like, you know, that's forever now. Like that's a thing, you know? So I think a part of me just wanted to add him to the legacy and make sure he had a spot somewhere. So I sent him a couple songs and he decided he wanted to rip on that one. And it's tucked way back there. He's like, I don't want to be too in front, too invasive, but I just wanted him on there one way or another. So yeah, that's my buddy Eric doing a harmonica solo.
Is there anything else you want to say, talk about?
I think that song really wraps up some true feelings about what it could feel like to kind of have these big dreams when you're younger, and the feeling of chasing them for so long and then kind of just feeling like, have I even made any progress? So any artist, creative, anybody like that, I think might resonate with that, or anyone just kind of in this life we live. You know, one of the lines is like, can't afford a house, can't afford a couch. Like, you know, when I was younger, I was told if I worked hard till I was 30, I would have a house, you know, and it's like, that line's like, I can't afford a house. Like, I can't even afford a couch. You know, there's these people out here with $20,000 couches, and it's just like, I can't even afford a $2,000 couch, you know, like, and then landlord called and said he wants you out. So it's just like, you know, I feel like a lot of us our age are living in this new world of apartments and landlords and kind of dealing with, you know, the stresses that come along with renting and not feeling free in a sense. You know, there's always the, you know, at any moment my landlord could be like, hey man, you have a month and you got to leave. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of stability is that? Like, what is that doing to our mental health? But yeah, that is definitely probably the most vulnerable I get on the whole album. And I had someone close to me, a friend of mine, hear the whole album, and she said, like, this is going to be the most popular song on the album. Like, people are going to resonate with this one the most. And I was a little shocked because I wasn't even sure if it was going to make the album. And we'll see if that's true or not. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of wraps up that track.
Yeah, I'm also, as I reflect on during my hard times of being an artist, when I was in 2019, I had like $40,000-$50,000 in debt because I spent everything in my video production, my films, and wanting to spread it to millions. And I only have a few people, and I wasn't being grateful for that. And that's very hard. And it's, I think any artist, creative, even entrepreneur can kind of relate in those tough times. So
yeah, I think it's just part of the journey, man. And, you know, they say every success is just a failure that tried one more time, you know, and people like you and I, it's like, I respect that you rolled the dice that big, and it's like, we're still here. You know, it's almost not an option for people like you and I. It's like, this is what we do. Like, whether it works or not, like, I'm not going to go to corporate America. Like, there's no, like, I feel like I don't have another option. Just kind of gotta to keep going for it. So yeah, when people are watching this video in 2027 and it's got millions of views, everybody make sure you follow the fuck out of Jose and blow his shit up.
thank you. Appreciate that. We'll
Yeah.
see what happens in 2027. All right. Ready to move on to 333?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
What's with the numbers?
That's a great question. I don't know, man. I'm not too far into like the woo-woo shit. I do love like 1111 and 333 and 222. Like, when I see them, it feels like a little bit of a reminder, like, oh, like I'm on my path, or just a reminder to be present to me, or, you know, to try to stay balanced. I don't know, maybe when I was going to save that project, it was probably 3:33 in the morning, to be honest with you. So I probably just kind of something like that.
So this track is definitely experimental. There's like a lot of sounds. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of sounds going on in this one for sure. On the intro there, another one with like heavy sound design on the intro, just kind of playing around with making sounds move on their own. Eventually that vocoder trick comes in, where it's like that high pitched kind of plucky noise. It's just like open chords being triggered by a different drum, but you can only hear the chords kind of like dun, 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 kind of like breaking through as the drums would be hitting. But you actually don't even hear the drums. The drums are muted, so they're just being used to trigger. And then the vocals kind of come in with this effect that I think is kind of part of my signature sound at this point. Just a little little secret sauce of like pitch shifting my voice, using layers, putting takes in different places, and using a tremolo to just wobble the vocals a little bit. Yeah, it was very experimental. I have this little hand sensor that's made for VR goggles. I've been hacking it into music and using it to control MIDI. So like as I'm singing, I'm like controlling the tremolo like literally with my hand, and like the reverb by just like kind of swelling my hand up and down. So I would say, yeah, super experimental on the production. This song, I don't know what it was about this song, but I just loved it from the jump. And I think it was the last song that I wrote for the album. It's definitely like a continuation of the previous songs with, sad thoughts.
Can you talk about the role that the lyrics play in converting the song's message?
Yeah, I'll just kind of go through them. I have them written out here. When will it be enough? All the things that I have. I don't know when. When will I feel okay? Everything that I have, I'm so blessed, but still I'm reaching. So it's kind of this mindset that I've developed for myself that I'm trying to rewire, if you will. I've spent my whole life like wanting, reaching, working towards, and the thing is, like I've accomplished some of those goals along the way, but it still never feels like enough, that feeling of moving the goalpost further and further, and like capturing something that I wanted for so long, and kind of maybe not getting the dopamine I thought I was going to get, and just kind of like, okay, what's next? So it's like, when will I have enough? When will I feel okay just where I'm at, and everything I have, I'm blessed, but still I'm reaching. So it's like, I know that I'm blessed. I know that I've been blessed with my life. I'm very blessed with the people I have in my life, the situation I was given. And even with all of that, this feeling of emptiness and that I've been confronting, and letting take control and focusing on the negative, trying to take a look at that and be like, hey, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? I've been out here, I'm struggling, always got to be up to something. I don't feel free, I'm running. Back on my shit, I'm stumbling again. Alone by myself, I could use a friend. Not too sure what all this means to me. So I've been out here struggling. So again, just kind of opening up about that couple months of depression that I went through, and always got to be up to something, always got to be distracting myself, trying to avoid these negative thoughts, whether it be anything, dude, YouTube, drugs, anything that can kind of distract myself from truly feeling my feelings. I don't feel free, I'm running. So it's like, I'm still running from those feelings. I'm still pushing down. How do I kind of feel those? Back on my shit, I'm stumbling again. Alone by myself, I could use a friend. That kind of, at the time, maybe a cry for help in some of those darker points of life. I'll find myself isolated and by myself, and yeah, not the best thing, kind of continue down the lyrics here. How do you feel inside? I don't feel too alive. Feel like we broke our minds. The future, I'm terrified. Again, just kind of feeling very at the time, thankfully now during this interview, I got that shine in my eyes again, and I'm stoked to be alive. But at the time I wrote the song, I couldn't quite say all of that. So I don't feel too alive, just kind of feeling, numb to it all. Feel like we broke our minds is kind of a reflection on social media and the way we ingest things and information. I feel like we've created this monster, and I feel like we've almost broke our minds to a point where we have a skewed vision on reality, and it's a mass problem. It's not an individual problem. It's a almost global problem at this point. But it's a community problem where we've given power to things that are like more powerful than humans. Things like social media now being driven by the dollar, no longer are decisions being made that are good for humanity because it's bigger than humanity. Humanity's not driving the ship anymore. Like, capitalism is driving the ship. We are now on this path where like there's not one human that's making decisions for these huge companies. Like, they've gone to the machine. Like, decisions are being made based off of profit. Like, there's like this disconnect going on. So that's kind of that line. Feel like we broke our minds. The future, I'm terrified. I'm kind of terrified of like, where is this all going to end up going? I've been getting way too high. I've been wasting all this precious time. Just kind of a reflection too. I like to be productive. And, during that time I was smoking a lot of weed and just, feeling like I was wasting time and not really stoked about it. I think the last line, which comes after a little bridge there, kind of ties up the song and it kind of threads it into the album. And the line is, I'm not too sure what to be doing with my time. I guess I'll try to make it calm inside. So this kind of shift of like constantly working towards this goal, finding myself stressed, this big dream, can't reach it, and kind of, you know, being like, hey, like that's not working. You know, let me take some time to just kind of try to find some inner peace and some well-being, and, you know, prioritizing that, which has been done since then. And I've realized how important it is to make time for yourself. And I heard it somewhere. It was like things to strive for is like a calm mind, a healthy body, and like love in the home, you know, love in your home, like the people that you live with, you know. And it's a shift from like, I want to be the next Mac Miller to that, to like, how do I wake up every day with a calm mind, a healthy body, and love in my home? So that's kind of the theme of the album. And I think maybe now is a good time to touch on the title, Erosion. It came to me halfway through working on the album. I called it Erosion because I had this concept of, you know, we have a spirit, we have a soul deep inside of us, like our true higher self or whatever you want to call it. And then through our childhood, through our culture, through our community, we pick up things and we add them to us, whatever that might be, where we see something, we try something, and we start adding these things to us without thinking about it as we're growing up. And the concept of erosion is the withering away of those things, not all of them, but the ones that aren't true to us. So, you know, all of these things that we've picked up over the years, kind of reflecting on them and being like, is that really me? Is that really who I am deep to my core? Or is that like capitalism and marketing making me feel like that's me? I'm trying to think of like an easy example, but like I don't drink alcohol anymore. So like alcohol, right? Bud Light just in my face from a young age. And then all of a sudden I'm 21 and I'm getting blacked out drunk. And then just kind of being like, is that me? Is that actually who I am? Or is that something that was instilled in me by like these outer external powers, and like recognizing those and like trying to start like releasing them from me and like getting down to my core being. So that's kind of what the title of Erosion means. And I think this is when I figured it out. And we'll jump now to The Garden, the next track. And I think these intro lyrics really sum that up, because I think when I wrote this song is when all of those pieces kind of started falling together in my head. But I've been trying to find my way back to when I was a child, watering the garden, and I've been eroding parts of me that I picked up along the way. But it's been hard to know who I was before they went and told me who to be, before they told me how and what to dream, before I had this culture in front of me, before they made their problems a part of me. I'm trying to go back. So it's kind of like I'm trying to go back to like my true self, like before they told me how and what to dream. Even me wanting to be a musician, those are dreams that are spoon fed to us as we're young. You know, go buy a guitar. You know, Pink Floyd has lyrics about it. Before they told me who and what to be, before I knew this culture in front of me, before I was born into this culture of, you know, things that are normalized, that are like, should that be normalized? You know what I mean? And we just live in a culture where we're told to accept it for how it is. And this song is kind of, you know, I want to go back to that childlike mind where I was just watering the garden, you know, feeding Mother Earth, the simple basics, before I knew all these like normalized things that our society does that we don't even bat an eye at because they're so normal, from, you know, strip clubs to vapes, you know what I mean? Like just kind of reflecting on that. And I'm trying to go back to the place where I came. It seems like every day they put some shit in my brain, and it's just like, yeah, it's just kind of a story of, hey, there's things in my brain, there's things in my thoughts, in my mind, that maybe somebody else put there. And maybe they put it there on accident. Maybe they put it there to profit and get me addicted to something, to buy something. But being like, hey, is that really who I am? Or is that just who I was told to be? You know, so that's kind of what that song is. And honestly, kind of what the album turned into sort of being about.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely feel like the consciousness in this song is really powerful, because that visual of being young in a garden, you're so pure, you're just learning about the world and seeing how things grow and how they are. And then as you get older, you're influenced by culture, by television, by marketing, and ingrained in these different messages about what matters and not. And now you see, like, speaking about just society, most of our kids are indoors on digital screens,
Yeah.
not in nature, not
Normal.
seeing how things are grown, how something grows from like a seed, and how you have to nurture it. You have to give it water, you have to give it sun. We can learn so much about gardening and apply it to our lives. And you can learn how to live by just being in a garden, maintaining your garden, not all these other things that are being told to you by these masses. So I like, I think that's there's a lot of great messages and themes in this one, but for me, I felt like this is like a reminder to get back to nature, learn from nature. That's where you can really learn so much about life and how to navigate it in all aspects, not just the garden, just looking at the ocean too and seeing how the waves can be very calm at one point, and then they can be really aggressive. And if you're going through a hard time and seeing those aggressive waves, knowing that this ship will pass, and
Exactly.
so it's great. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I love the parallels to just the way the world works.
Uh, Anything else you want to touch on the garden?
No, I think that about covers it, dude.
Great. Clean, is this on the album?
To be decided, I guess.
Why are you
Probably.
hesitating?
I was hesitant just because it didn't seem to like hold up to maybe some of the other songs when I originally, I don't know, was reflecting on. I think a big part of it is it's a very personal song again. It's very much.
Why is it so personal?
It's written, it's written towards myself. I forgive you for all you've done is the opening line, and just kind of, I think, again, I think to my core being is a good person. But that's not to say that I haven't done shitty things in my life. And again, it was kind of that period of my life where I gave myself permission to feel feelings that I didn't want to feel, that I've been subconsciously or consciously pushing down for so long. And just confronting those and saying, hey, you maybe did do something shitty in the past, but this is where you're at right now, and it got you to where you are, and you need to forgive yourself, you need to accept. And yeah, that's kind of what the song's about. I forgive you for all you've done. You don't have anywhere to run. What are you doing here? Why did you come? Don't forget that you need to love. I'm just trying to find me, turn off my mind, let it be, emancipate myself, let them free, rinse my soul till I feel I'm clean. I just gotta let go. Everything I fight's from the things that I hold. It's all inside, I know, reaching for the light while I let myself grow. So that's like the intro verse. Yeah, just back on that theme of letting things go. Everything I fight's from the things that I hold. Just kind of like when I resist against the flow and what is, that's when the fights happen, the internal conflicts, the battles. And it's like, all of those fights are because I'm resisting. And it's like an attempt to say, hey, just it is what it is, sort of. Yeah.
As you understand erosion and the different types of ways it can break you down as a person, and the metaphor of the garden, I think this song does belong in the album because this is a sort of erosion and looking at all the bad stuff that you're not proud of, but understanding that it's not part of you forever, that you can let it go.
Yeah.
So I think it's good.
Yeah. I think it's going to end up on the album. I think I almost have to. I think it's powerful to just release it. I think whether that means for my own sake or whatever, but I've been super influenced by Rick Rubin's recent book, and I think he'd be upset if I kept it off the album. So,
Anything else you want to mention about this song?
there's a cool sample in there. Midnight Gospel, Duncan Trussell sample. He says something along the lines of like, check in with people. Like, are you okay? Like, how are you doing? And just kind of reminding, you know, to connect with people. And yeah, don't forget to just check in on people. And we live in a world now where it's like, we have like almost this false sense of connection because of social media, and we all feel like we're so connected 24/7. But it all feels so surface level. So I think it's just kind of like, you know, don't forget to reach out to your friends and ask, you good? Everything good? You know, it seems so rudimentary, but I feel like it's less common than you realize. And I don't know. I have one friend, shout out Schmitty, and he checks in on me all the time, and it feels really good. And yeah, it's just interesting how you can have some people that are so close to you in certain ways, but you know, some of your closest people would never be like, are you okay? You know, is everything okay? Are you good? So yeah, just a reminder to check in on people too. And, you know, community is very important for mental health and connection.
And I think you've done a great job. Like, we've met 2018 and managed to maintain a relationship. I feel like sometimes in some of my closer relationships, I don't even maintain as good contact like with you. And I'm glad that I flew out to Denver.
Yeah.
Was it last year already? That we
Last
talked again, reconnected. You met my girlfriend and see your life, your community, your house, your friends. So that was super cool. So I'm glad.
No, it's about keeping the right connections. You know what I mean? You know, I don't think you and I met by chance, and I was so grateful that you're willing to do this with me, but also just, love to call you my friend, and, you know, it's an honor.
Likewise, man.
Cheers.
Ready for the next track?
Yeah, let's do it.
Tapped in.
Yeah, the lyrics on this one, I think it encapsulates kind of the vibes of the album. It talks about kind of where I am on my journey and how important the people closest to me are, how important, you know, my partner is, you know, keep her by my side, you know, to keep my mind sane, sort of. And yeah, I don't know. It just felt like a song to kind of get some bars off and just really rap and let it out. Some of it was like freestyled, and I was just like, I'm keeping that. That was cool. I don't really know where that came from.
What lyrics stand out to you most from this track?
Some of the lyrics that stick out to me, that I really like. I mean, even from just a rap perspective, I really like the flow of them. There's like kind of a flow switch that happens. Are the lyrics that goes, the ringleader, the main feature, the brain feeder. You know that I've been coming through. Yeah, I speak for the ether. I don't have to sell you nothing. I'll just do it for the people. So that last line there, I've been coming through. Yeah, I speak for the ether. Kind of loops back to what we were talking about earlier. Like sometimes I just feel like I'm trying to just open up as a vessel and speak for, you know, maybe something that's more powerful than me as an individual. You know, it's like, oh, where do these thoughts come from? You know, they just come from the ether, and it's kind of like, you know, they're flowing to me, but are they necessarily mine? You know, and kind of embracing like, I speak for the ether. I don't have to sell you nothing. I'll just do it for the people. That line kind of gets into music as a product, and that's not what I do, you know, like, you know, pop music, and it's all written with the intention of like a dollar sign at the end. And I'm just kind of saying, I don't have to sell you anything. Like I do this for the people. Like I just do this for the love of the sport. I do this for the love of music and wanting to reach out to other people. You know, there's no greedy intentions behind this. This is pure art. This is pure music. So that kind of line, I don't know. I really like that part of the song for sure.
And then the ending, like a nice guitar. Did you collaborate with someone on that, or is that you?
Yeah. That's what I was about to bring up. That's my good buddy, Ryan Marr. He has also just been a really solid friend, first and foremost. But, you know, mentor and kind of role model to just being a musician in Denver. He's born and raised in Denver. He plays in my band now. He plays in my other band, Ground Loop. He's the guitar player. And yeah, I don't know, him and I, so he did the guitar solo. He came over. First time he tried it, didn't really stick. I invited him back over. I was like, nah, dude, we can do this better. Let's try again. And then we got that cool solo. but he's just someone I can really relate to, you know, through the struggling artist kind of side of things. We've had discussions on self-worth and kind of, you know, doing all of this hard work, trying so hard to accomplish something only to have this feeling of being worthless is something that we both have experienced as artists, you know, because it's a lot of time and effort to just suddenly be like, has this done anything? You know, it's easy to fall into those thoughts, you know, the negative side of things. And yeah, the more I get into it, the more I see, you know, I do see my worth, you know, when I'm performing or DJing, and, you know, people are getting that momentary relief from the real world. But yeah, I guess he has just been an awesome dude to be collaborative with and to be in a band with. And he also just knows the music world pretty well. So again, another person that I just wanted to encapsulate on the project and add to the legacy, and yeah, give him a slot. And I'm really happy with the way it came out.
Yes. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Final song, Erosion outro. Who is talking in the beginning?
Yes, so that is my friend Remy, and it's the outro track, but I don't think this song was written last. I think this song was written right after the concept of Erosion came to me. I actually invited her to come over to sing on a song that didn't make it on the album. So she came over, she sang on a song that I thought was going to be on the album, and I had her over, and it was cool, but it didn't end up going anywhere. But after we worked on that song, we had like a 20-minute conversation, and she was probably one of the women who, you know, just in that 20 minutes, she opened me up to different things to think about, but also was like confirming things that I already was starting to think and feel. But yeah, she's kind of talking about dedicating time and space to feel those feelings when you feel like you might be pushing things away. You know, she says, like, call it in, like, give yourself space and say, hey, what do you want me to think about? What do you want me to deal with, to process? So that conversation was super, super awesome. Through that conversation, she ended up, just because of my interest in the things that I was saying, she recommended a local free men's group that I started going to, which in turn has led to me starting to go to therapy. And yeah, I really appreciate her and that. And she's just a beautiful soul, and she's got an amazing voice, obviously. And she sings on that song, which wasn't the plan. Right before she left after that conversation, I was like, let me play the outro for you. I think I made it like the day before. And she like kind of sparked up. She's like, oh, let me sing on that too. And it ended up being, you know, the part that she ended up getting on the album. But yeah, that was a great collaboration. She sings really well, but I don't think she's been in like a studio very much. So we kind of had fun. Just, you know, I put her in auto tune for the first time just for fun, stuff like that.
And what are some of your key messages in your lyrics for this last song?
So the opening lyric, I think, is very strong. Now I leave a part of me in the past. I swear I won't go back. And the things I thought that made me who I am, the road in. So that really summarizes the whole project. You know, accepting the things that I learned through the process of writing this album, and then saying, hey, now I leave a part of me in the past. You know, all of this it's out now, you know, whether it means I got it out through the therapy sessions, or you know, the moments of allowing my emotions to come, or if I got it out through the lyrics, whatever it was, like through that couple of month growing process, like it's out now, and me kind of announcing, like, I'm gonna leave that in the past where it belongs. Yeah, and then, you know, parts of me are eroding, you know, the same concept that we already touched on. Taking time to chip away at the real me I'm holding deep inside. Yeah, I know that I'm golden. So, you know, the whole erosion concept, like getting to the core of myself. And then there's another line about, and this dream that I've been chasing was spoon fed to me as just a boy, kind of looping back to what I said earlier, you know, like this rock star dream, you know, it's just what we see when we're younger, you know, and like, I'm happy I'm on this path, but it really is like it's almost a external goal, you know. It was almost something to strive for because our culture said so, because rock stars are cool, and just kind of acknowledging that.
What emotions are you hoping to leave listeners as they finish the album?
Closure. It kind of has an uplifting feel, you know, kind of, you know, we made it through all of that stuff, and now we're just rising again. I feel like it kind of has like a rising feeling, you know, because the album starts so high and it dips into this lull. And I wanted to make sure, you know, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's something to pull people up, and to end it on a high note.
What does Remy say at the end?
Oh, that's a good question. We her and I used ChatGPT to write a definition of erosion, but in the context of human spiritual growth, not like the actual context of, you know, erosion, like from a stream or wind or whatever. So that was like a ChatGPT definition of what erosion means, like basically the whole concept. Erosion, I don't remember the whole thing, but, you know, the removal of layers of self to find that core being basically is some. It's like, you know, even through the writing process, the album, you know, the concept came dimly, and I wrote more songs, and by the end of the album, right, by the very end of the outro, it's like that concept has solidified. Like we have a definition now of like erosion, of like what it means in the sense that I'm trying to say it as. And I think it just feels concrete, you know, and as it should, because it's like that whole process of writing that album came to that conclusion, to that understanding.
Anything else you want to
Shout
touch
out
on?
to shout out to Remy. Can't wait to do more music stuff with her. I would love to produce an album for her, or get her on some more songs, and would love to get her on stage with me eventually when the Carbon shows start happening. Shout out to my buddy Dan Pope. He was the mixing engineer. I did a lot of mixing and then brought it to a studio in Denver. He was just great. He really helped the final balancing, but he also just taught me so much. Now he's just a homie, another music homie. Appreciate your help on the album. Shout out to Jordan Rago. He is mastering the album right now. It's not mastered yet, but he will be doing a great job. I already know he's mastered some other stuff. He's a buddy from back home. Shout out to my partner, Ray. She definitely influenced some of the songs, and through these tough times, she is the main person that helped me understand some of my feelings and how to unlearn sort of what it means to be a man, right? You're a man, you can't feel, you know. She really helped me unpack some of that, and I love her dearly. Yeah, other than that, shout out to my friends and family.
Now that we went through the whole album track by track, what are your ending thoughts that come to mind?
I'm excited to release it. I've realized with life in general to not, you know, that expectations can really ruin things. So, you know, this album very much is for me, and I've accomplished what I set out to accomplish. So I have no expectations with the release. You know, if I release it the first week and, you know, it only gets a handful of plays, I'm gonna not let that get to me, which I used to do as an artist. You know, I used to hurt me dearly to work so long on something only to release it to, you know, 30 views or whatever. But yeah, just through the growing process, I've realized like that's not the point, and a lot of it is for me, and I'm proud of it, and, you know, it's a chapter of my life, and I'm excited to close that chapter and open the next, you know, with my own personal music, because I have plenty of other music projects. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next. I'm playing a festival in a month from now at Breathe. I'm going to debut some of the songs there. I'm really excited about that. That is a great community of people who, yeah, just accepting and allow people to be who they are. So it's the perfect group of people to be performing it to, presenting it to. Still got to do some artwork. I think, and this loops back to that moment from The Face of God, where I broke down, man, and I came to tears, and I felt proud of myself, like debatably for the first time in my adult life. It was just an interesting thing because until I felt it, I didn't realize, right? And then I felt proud of myself, and then I realized like I haven't had this feeling in so long. And I mean, we can get into it deep, but it's like I think ultimately it's just expectations placed on me from my parents and society, and feeling like a failure almost nonstop, even though I shouldn't. I've accomplished a lot and I should be proud of myself. But yeah, that moment kind of translating till now just feeling proud. I think any musician understands like a 10-song album is it's not an easy feat, and I'm proud of myself for putting it together and packaging it up and putting it out there, whether a billion people hear it or just my close friends hear it. Either way, I'm changing my mental on that, and calling it a W, before it even is heard by other people. I won, so it's kind of how I'm feeling about the release.
Any last thoughts or messages that come to mind?
Big thank you to you, Jose. I really, 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 really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the album 4 times, create questions, draft them up, and give me 2 hours of your time to do this. I knew from the first interview we did, you were the perfect guy to ask. I know I said this last time, but I really think you got a knack for the interview stuff. So I don't know, maybe you can work that in somewhere in the future for yourself. But yeah, big thank you to you. Thank you to my roommates for being okay with me being loud. Thank you to my landlord for being okay with me being loud. Shout out to Tyler, Danny, and Jack. Shout out to Ground Loop, my band. Shout out to the Ground Loop family, the community that we're starting to build. And yeah, shout out to whoever's listening right now. Just, you're never alone, and you're not your thoughts. And there's parts of you, like there's multiple parts of everybody. And if you don't like a part, you can work towards letting it go. It's not an unobtainable goal. So keep working.
And I'll just end with just some of my thoughts. I'm really impressed of like how you package this album together, how well thought out it is, but most importantly that you let yourself surrender, and what you said earlier about not getting in your way, getting out of your way, and really getting into being honest with yourself about the good and bad. And it's really reflected in the album. And there's a lot of great, beautiful metaphors in this about life. Like the face of God really stands out, uh, and trusting that you are in whatever you believe in, but being in the hands of the universe when you're trying to pursue your dreams, no matter how scary it is, and just being brave. But also, like the garden, also is also a really uh, important metaphor for our society, and getting back to nature. I think that's one key takeaway that I feel like I'm want to get back to. And if you really stick to the basics of being nature, I think we get so caught up on what is important about like the latest shiny things, and like just running to the next thing and not really sitting still. But if we take the themes that we learned in our earlier childhood about playing in our yards, about being in nature, that it can make us, much happier and understand life a lot more. So those are some of the things that I take away with this. And yeah, man, I'm really proud of you
Thank you.
and what you created. And I think it's going to be a really powerful impact, especially that you took the time to be able to talk about the process behind the art, because it's so much more powerful now that there's a story behind it. Like, what was your thought process behind it, your personal experiences, and how honest and vulnerable you are with this is very much appreciated. So I think, as with the release of the album, by you sharing your story, I think that's going to be really good for folks to better understand.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. On that notes, we can wrap up our conversation about erosion.